A father reaches down to lift his baby son, and the child screams, not at a stranger, at him, at the great horsehair crest nodding on his war helmet. So the father laughs, he lifts the bronze helmet from his head, sets it shining on the ground, and gathers up his boy. His wife smiles through her tears. And we already know what they cannot. This child will be hurled from these walls to die on the rocks below, killed by men in helmets just like that one. This is Hector of Troy. He is the enemy, and Homer is about to make us love him. Every war story needs an enemy to hate. The Iliad refuses to give us one. When Homer takes us inside the walls of Troy, we do not find alien villains, we find people, an old king, a grieving wife, a frightened child, fighting for their homes against invaders from across the sea. This is the portrait of the enemy we are made to love, one of the most remarkable achievements in the whole poem. The Trojans are drawn not as flat cardboard villains, but as living three-dimensional people. Many readers come away finding the Trojans, and Hector above all, more sympathetic than half the Greek heroes. Homer paints them fighting a defensive war to protect their homes and their country. The Greeks are the ones who cross the sea to make war upon them. Two kinds of knowledge shape how we see them. We know as the audience that Troy is doomed to fall, and we know things that lie beyond the poem itself. The fates Homer never pauses to tell, that the walls will be breached, that the men will die and the women be carried off. We watch these people already grieving for them. The first long look inside the city comes in Book 3, and it rests strangely not on soldiers, but on those who cannot fight. The aged king Priam, the old man of Troy, and Helen, the woman the whole war is fought over. Homer takes us up onto the walls. The Trojan elders sit watching the battle on the plain below, and Helen approaches. The old men lower their voices and speak of her in words that hold her whole terrible contradiction. She is the most beautiful woman in the world. She is also the ruin of their city. There is no blame, they murmur, on the Trojans or the strong-grieved Achaeans for suffering so long over a woman like this. Her face is like the face of the immortal goddesses. Terrible. Achaeans is Homer's most common name for the Greeks. There is no blame, they say, on either the Trojans or the strong-grieved Achaeans for suffering hardship so long over a woman like this. And yet, even so, better that she go home in the ships than stay to be a grief to us and to our children. These old men gain nothing whatever from Helen, nothing at all, and still they cannot bring themselves to blame anyone for fighting over such beauty. Yet in the same breath, they wish her gone, before she brings even greater ruin upon them. If the elders set the tone, Priam seals it. His first words to Helen fix his character for the rest of the poem. Here is a king whose city is being torn apart in a war fought over her, whose people die because she is inside his walls. And yet he could hardly speak more gently. He calls to her to come and sit beside him, to look out at her former husband, her kinsmen, her own people. And he tells her plainly, I do not blame you. To Priam's mind, the gods are the guilty ones. It was they who drove this sorrowful war upon him. He calls her dear child, spoken to the woman who has brought his family to the edge of destruction. This is not an enemy a Greek audience could comfortably hate. A compassionate, kindly old man speaking to a frightened young woman, refusing, though everything is falling, to reproach her for any of it. And when Priam blames the gods, he touches the deepest current in the poem. The limits of human effort, the workings of fate. The outcome is already fixed. It will unfold as it must, whether the mortals understand it or not. Priam does not know that Troy will fall. We do, but he believes with his whole heart that these calamities were sent against him by the gods. He is a man reading his own catastrophe, and getting only half of it right. Now the talk on the wall turns outward, to the warriors on the plain. Priam asks Helen to name them for him, and she names 3. Agamemnon, who leads the whole vast expedition, Odysseus, the cleverest of the Greeks, and the finest speaker among them, and Aias the greater, the best fighter of them all, second only to Achilles himself. Helen can name every warrior she sees but two, her own brothers, Castor and Polydeuces, known to later ages as Castor and Pollux. She supposes they stayed away out of shame at what she has done, and the disgrace she brought upon her people. But here the poet steps quietly forward and tells us the truth she does not know. Her brothers did not stay home. They are already dead, buried far away, under the life-giving earth of their native Sparta. That small phrase carries a whole argument inside it. The life-giving earth, cradling the dead. 19th century critics, Matthew Arnold among them, prized this line as one of exceptional beauty, and savored the terrible irony folded inside it. Helen believes her brothers are alive and safe at home. The poet quietly tells us they lie dead beneath that fertile ground. And to those readers, the contrast seemed almost unbearably moving. Then came Milman Parry and the theory of oral composition. And many said such readings were finished. Life-giving earth, they argued, was simply a fixed phrase. Homer reached for it because he filled the end of the line, not because he meant any contrast with the dead. But more recently, the argument has turned once more. A counter-movement has pushed back against the strictest version of the theory. Not every phrase, they insist, is a mere convenience of the meter, reached for only because it fills the shape of the line. Consider this phrase, it is extremely rare. It appears perhaps only twice in all of Homer, and here it falls precisely on a passage about dead men. Why not suppose the poet chose it this once on purpose? The oral theory clears up some of these puzzles and leaves others standing open. Whether the line is deliberate, aching irony, or only a beautiful accident of the tradition, is something each reader, in the end, must decide alone. That same scene hides a second puzzle, a question of where episodes belong. Helen naming the Greek commanders for Priam belongs, by all logic, to the first year of the war, not the 10th. There is no reason, 9.5 years into the siege, for Priam to suddenly ask who all these warriors are. Older scholars pounced. Here, they said, is the proof. Someone stitched the poem together clumsily, taking a scene that belonged near the war's beginning and dropping it in here, with no concern for whether the story held together. The most famous case of all is the great catalogue of ships in Book 2, a long roll call of the fleets that sailed from Greece, their captains, their numbers, their home cities. A master list like that has little business in the war's 10th year. And yet it is doubtful this really means the poem is broken. Most readers meet Helen and Priam on the walls without once objecting that it should have happened years before. No more than an audience at a play wonders why the events that set the drama in motion happen just as the curtain rises. They happen then because the story needs them then. It may be the 10th year of the war, but from where we sit, we are only in the third book of the poem, still near the beginning, and it works poetically to name the heroes exactly here. Poetry does not run on that kind of clockwork logic. From the walls, the poem moves deeper inside to a room where Paris and Helen are alone, and here the whole war is laid bare in all its pathos and futility. Paris is inside the city only because a goddess put him there. He had been fighting a duel with Menelaus, Helen's first husband, another scene that, if it happened at all, belongs to the war's first year. The obvious end to everything. Let the two men fight. Let Helen go to the winner. Yet in the poem, this duel is proposed only after Achilles has already stormed off the battlefield. Hector suggests it. Paris agrees, and as the two men fight, Menelaus is winning. One more blow and the war is over. There will be almost nothing left to tell. And then Aphrodite intervenes. She snatches Paris up off the field, carries him back inside Troy, and sets him down, safe in his own bedroom. Then she goes to fetch Helen. She is the goddess of desire and an active hand inside the story, deliberately pushing Paris and Helen back together. She comes for Helen disguised as an old serving woman. but Helen sees through her and refuses. Helen is ashamed to walk out of the city in front of everyone to go and lie with Paris again. So the goddess turns cruel. I can make you as hated, she warns, as you are now loved. And Helen yields. But listen to what Helen says when she reaches Paris. Among her first words is a wish that Menelaus had killed him in the duel. She despises him now as much as anyone alive does. She has no more use for him at all. And there it is, the emptiness at the very center of the war. It is being fought over a love affair that one of the two lovers no longer even wants. The Trojans are staking everything, their country, their city, their lives, their freedom, all of it so that Paris and Helen may go on living together. And Helen herself no longer desires it. That is the disproportion the poem will never let us forget. So Homer shows us the Trojans behind the walls, Helen among them, and reminds us of one thing. Unlike the Greeks, they fight not only for honor and glory, or not for those alone, they fight for the survival of their homeland. And that double burden lives most heavily in one man, the greatest warrior Troy has, Hector, crown prince of the city and Paris's elder brother. Hector's first words in the poem, also in Book 3, are aimed at his own brother. He rebukes Paris for the shame he has heaped on Troy. Beautiful, he calls him, but rotten, woman-mad, a seducer, hard words for an older brother to say. It is this rebuke that shames Paris into facing Menelaus, and though the quarrel was never Hector's, it is Hector who walks out between the massed ranks of Greeks and the Trojans to propose the duel, to speak for his whole people. Book 3 gives us Hector the warrior and Hector the leader. Book 6 gives us Hector the man. It follows him back inside the city and turns almost entirely on his family, his wife Andromache, his baby son Astyanax, and a little his mother Hecuba. Hector enters Troy to ask his mother to bring gifts to the goddess Athena, to soften her and win her favor for the Trojan side. And that small errand reveals something we might have missed. The Trojans worship the very same gods as the Greeks. There is no sense that Athena is some strange, foreign deity whose help must be begged from far off. The poem simply takes it for granted. The Trojans share the Greek gods, and it seems to assume they even speak Greek. On the battlefield, Greeks and Trojans argue and taunt each other in the same tongue. Homer knew other languages existed. He speaks of Trojan allies who chatter in barbarous speech, twittering like birds so that no one can understand them. But the Trojans themselves are simply Greek. Greek in their gods, Greek in their words. This is how the poet builds them. Not as an alien enemy, easy to despise, but as a people almost exactly like the audience listening. There are small differences. Priam appears to keep more than one wife against Greek custom. But on the whole, the Trojans are treated as Greeks, worshipping the same gods, some of whom favor Troy, others the invaders at their gates. And now we come to the scene on which Hector's whole humanity rests. He has gone into Troy to send his mother to Athena and to drag his brother Paris back to the fighting, since Paris still lingers safe inside the walls. But on the way he meets his wife Andromache and their infant son. It is one of the most famous passages ever written. Andromache begs him, do not go back to the battle. Stay here, inside the walls, with me and with our child. She has reason to be afraid. Achilles has already killed her father and her brothers. So Hector, she tells him, is now everything to her at once. Father, mother, brother, and husband. All of it in one man. And Hector's answer reveals exactly what the Trojans are fighting for. All these same fears, he says, live in my own heart too, but I would burn with shame before the men and the women of Troy, if I hung back from the fighting like a coward. His spirit will not let him. He has learned always to be brave, to fight among the foremost, to win glory for himself and for his father. Then, in the same breath, he confesses the sin he most dreads. He knows in his bones that a day will come when sacred Troy will fall, when Priam and all of Priam's people will perish, and yet only a few lines later he prays that his son will grow to be a better man than his father. That is what makes Hector so human. In one moment, certain his city is doomed. In the next, imagining the boy grown and himself grown old. He does not know the future, he only fears it. And what he fears is not what we would guess. Not the fall of the city, not his own death, not even the deaths of his mother and father. What he cannot bear is the thought of Andromache, dragged off weeping into slavery by some Greek. He can already hear the onlookers jeering. There goes the wife of great Hector, now a slave. And from where we sit, we know this is precisely what will come to pass. Andromache will be enslaved, and the baby Astyanax will be killed by the Greeks, thrown down from the walls of Troy to break on the rocks below. Everything we watch is stained by this knowledge, which Hector and Andromache do not have. And now the most famous detail of all. Hector reaches out for his baby, and the child shrinks back screaming, terrified by the horsehair crest tossing on his father's helmet. So Hector laughs. He lifts the bronze helmet from his head and lays it, gleaming on the ground. Then he takes up his son and prays aloud that the boy will grow to surpass him. And Andromache, we are told, smiles through her tears. The moment pierces us, and it pierces us because we know. Hector's prayer will not be answered, and Astyanax will die at the hands of helmeted men. Men in helmets exactly like the one his father set down to hold him. Behind all of it stands one hard fact the poem never hides. The vast gap between what the Trojans risk, the total destruction of their people and their world, and what they risk it for. The affair of Paris and Helen. Even in antiquity, people saw it. As far back as the 6th century BC, writers asked the obvious question. Why did Priam not simply send Helen back? What king would let his whole country be destroyed? And for what? So that a younger son, not even the heir to the throne, could keep another man's wife. The honest answer is that no king would, so some Greek writers invented ways out. They said Helen had never truly been in Troy at all, that Priam could not return a woman he did not have, and the Greeks would not believe him. But in the Iliad, Helen is unmistakably there, and we are never told why Priam keeps her. Yet the poem itself seems to feel the wrongness of the trade, and it says so quietly in one more scene from Book 6. A Trojan ally Glaucus meets the Greek hero Diomedes on the field. As warriors so often do, they call out their family lines, each measuring how great a prize the other would be to kill. And in the reciting, they discover something. Their families are bound across generations by ties of guest friendship and hospitality, so they refuse to fight. There are plenty of other Greeks and the Trojans, they reason, for each of them to kill, and as a sign of the old bond, they exchange their armor. Then the poet adds a strange, dry note. Zeus, he says, stole away the wits of Glaucus, for he traded golden armor worth 100 oxen for bronze worth only 9, a gleaming fortune, given away for almost nothing. And that line can be read as a verdict on all the Trojans. They too have made a ruinous trade. They have given away the blessings of peace, home, the joy of watching their children grow, the flourishing of their country. And for what? For Helen, and she is not worth it. The order of the story makes the point sharper still. The moment Glaucus trades his golden armor away, Hector walks into the city, and at once he is surrounded by the women of Troy, asking after their brothers, their fathers, their husbands, their sons. The trade the whole city has made is written in those anxious faces. Peace and safety and the future, all handed over, to keep one woman inside the walls. And so, in his portrait of the Trojans, Homer gives us no villain to hate. He gives us a whole people, from the aged king Priam to the young wife Andromache. Caught in a tragic war they never sought, and suffering consequences far out of proportion to any fault of their own. We watch them from behind their walls, knowing what they cannot, that the city will fall, that the wife will be enslaved, that the child will die. And in the watching, the Iliad works its strangest, most humane magic. It makes us mourn the enemy before the enemy is even lost.